everybody, and welcome back to Cozy Cards and Crystals. My name is Joanna, and today it's time for another episode of Cover Judge, where we take the motto Don't judge a book by its cover at heart and take a look at some topics or things that I think we are too quick and too surface level to judge in the Tarot Tube community. So, last episode I talked about tuck boxes. This episode, we are going to take a look at some guidebooks and especially some little white books as well as PDF guidebooks, but also some guidebooks that you might think at first glance that they're really good and in depth guidebooks, but maybe they're not. So, the reason why I think we are too quick to judge in terms of guidebooks or the quality of a guidebook is I have seen it often on walkthroughs, first impression videos, unboxings, and stuff, where, and I've done it too, so I'm not excluding myself, I'm guilty in that as well. And there's a reason for that belief sticking around in our brain, where you unbox a deck and then you go like, well, of course, especially with mass market decks, well, of course, it's a little white book when you see something like this. I don't even care. I don't even take the time to closely look at it or open it up because I know what little white books um, have to offer content-wise. Then in 99% of the cases, when you open it up, the thing that you're going to find inside is just your basic few keywords for each of the cards, your RWS meaning, and that's it. And sometimes what I also have found with unboxings and flip through videos and stuff like that is, well, of course, I understand that you don't want to um, unnecessarily lengthen your video and you don't have the time while recording a video to actually during record sit there and read through the guidebook to then really know what's inside, what the content is inside, and what the information is that you're getting out of there. So of course with your first impressions you just um, see that it's not a little white book but an actual nicely bound book with a cover, and and it's probably pretty thick. You have a good amount of pages, and then you look and see, well, it's a good amount of text for each of the cards. So I assume out of that that this must be a really good guidebook because you get a lot of words, a lot of pages. So that must equal a lot of good or deep or well thought out information and a well thought out product value as well. That doesn't have to be the case. And here I have some examples to show you guys or prove you guys wrong and show you guys that a second look at Little White Books might be worth it, and also a second look at guidebooks that seem like a good deal and seem like a good guidebook content-wise, but maybe they aren't. And it's just more shine than actual content. And so here I have three little white books that seem to prove me or that have proven me wrong in the assumption that these are just basic little white books. But for example, with the Gay Tarot, when you look at it, first of all, there is a useful introduction in here, which is not your basic blah blah of what tarot is and how to use tarot and a little bit of some historic facts. Not that I'm saying that this information isn't necessary to know or interesting to know, but and I don't need the 112th book to tell me the exact same thing. But this introduction here really goes into or gives you a little bit of context and goes into the thought of the creator, why to create, or the reason for the creator to create a tarot deck themed like it is, or around the topic of masculine figures and the sacred masculine or a male energy. And then you get into your card meanings. And yeah, these aren't really a lot. It's like basically your standard meanings. Um, but what I really like here is that one that is a little bit oddly in terms of font. I don't know the English word for this. You get a key phrase actually or motto for each of the cards, which are kind of interesting to look at and sometimes give you a little bit of an interesting twist or a new perspective or a little bit of a fresh insight on your standard meaning. And so I really love that. And it also gives you that for the minors as well. The next one is the Little Red Book from the Hans and Roberts Tarot deck. I know that there is an actual guidebook to it that has a really good reputation of being super detailed and super deep and meaningful. And I want to get it, but even with the Little White Book that comes with this deck, you get information about the artist and about this deck. But when we take a look at the card meanings, you actually get a description of what's on the card and what that symbolizes, which is really kind of helpful. And I mean, you don't need it to work with the cards or interpret the cards because they're really Rider-Waite-Smith based in terms of what they depict. But it's kind of interesting to see why the creator chose us different things, or maybe it gives you a little bit more depth or a little bit more detail, or it opens your eyes on something that you not necessarily thought of being meaningful, like a specific color chosen for a specific thing, that you haven't thought of being an actual symbol or holding a specific meaning or being intentionally put there. Or sometimes when something pops out in a reading from that specific depiction, you can go in here and take a look at what that symbolizes, which I really like. And you don't normally get that with Little White Books or would expect that from a Little White Book. And the last one is from the Secret Tarot. And this one is a little bit special because it's not even a little white book. As you can see, it's like a fold out paper sheet, which sometimes can be a little bit annoying, but it's worth the struggle because it actually gives you a complete story for each of the suits. And not only for the major arcana, but also for each of the minor arcana. And they correlate not one-on-one with every little detail, but overarchingly with the depictions that are on the cards of this suit. And so it's really, I love stories. I love when decks are created with a story in the guidebook to fit a specific story, or a story is created to fit a deck and the images. I love that because I think you can get so much out of the story. It was really unexpected for me, especially since I saw, well, it's a little pamphlet. I don't expect anything. So I really like this one. Now to two examples that might seem like they're good guidebooks at first glance because they're actual books. They're nicely bound, they have a cover, they look pretty substantial in the amount of pages that they have, especially this one for an oracle deck. But content-wise, well, let's see what you think. For me, they don't work. And with the texture tarot, don't get me wrong, I don't want to bash this deck, or I actually love this deck and I love the creator. But if you're like on your unboxing and you unbox this deck and you get the cards out, get the guidebook out, and you're like, well, that's a nicely bound guidebook. Let's look at the pages and let's see, ooh, there are even images of the cards in here. You get a page per card. Well, that looks like a decent guidebook. And then you put it aside. It's like, well, take a look at what's really in there, what the words are saying before you judge it being a nice guidebook, because yeah, production quality wise, it's quite nice, but actually what you're getting is nothing more than what you would expect from a classic Little White Book. Um, it's like your basic keywords, RWS keywords. And that's it. And as you can see, it's not even like a text or anything, or not even going into the symbology, which for this deck is like, well, it's easy to read because it is RWS based, and where it's deviating from that in terms of the depiction, it's still pretty recognizable and easy to understand and to connect to the card's meaning. But one thing that I really love about this deck is that she put so much attention and thought about what she put in each of these cards. And there are so many little details that you probably even easy to miss when looking at the cards at first, that I'm like, for this deck, really is a reason for going into the details of the cards, because the depictions of the cards really give you those. And so I think it's kind of a shame that she didn't do that in this guidebook, even though I don't need it. For me, the symbols that she uses and the little hidden details and Easter eggs in the cards are pretty easy to understand for me, or make sense for me, but I would love to see her interpretation, or to point those things out for somebody that maybe hasn't recognized some of these details in the cards, and I'm not sure if I have even recognized or am aware of everything in every card. And then this is a perfect example of a guidebook that's like, well, it's nicely bound, it has a gorgeous cover, it has a lot of pages, and you get for each of the cards pretty much a pretty good amount of text. And then the poems, I love the poems, and that you get for each of the cards, you get a poem. But when you actually take the time to read through these messages, content-wise, what she says in these messages, you could actually put into maybe one paragraph, and that's it. And the rest of the words are just meaningless or repeating what she already said. And so I put an example right here. So for this one, she says, passion is igniting within you. It is not a time when things will remain still, even if the change is only sensed as a subtle stirring underneath the surface of things. Even if slow at first, passion will unfold from within your heart, soon to be burning bright like a sun unrestrained. So here, only in this first paragraph, you get passion is igniting within you. A sentence later, you get passion will unfold from within you. So why saying that two times in only one paragraph? It's exactly the same thing. Then you are learning how to ride waves of passion. A sentence later, ride its waves, knowing that passionate bliss will always return. So ride passion, passion is like waves. Exactly the same thing, one sentence would be totally enough. Then you get again fire emerging from within you, so repeating what she said twice in the first paragraph. And then trust the passion and the fire of your heart. Again, fire of your heart, passion and fire within you. I mean, just put it down. You have one sentence here. You have this one, which could basically be a long sentence or maybe two sentences. That's it. So there's a whole paragraph or half of this writing is exactly repeating itself. So at first glance, it might seem like a super deep and informative message and a lot of information, but it's exactly the same thing. And that was not just coincidence. Here's another example where you get actually the same thing. Bow to that which is simple, find answers to your most complex issues because of the simplicity, find the solution through simplicity. So she actually says in the first two sentences exactly the same thing. The most sophisticated of problems can be resolved through a simple answer, exactly the same thing as find a solution through simplicity. Let simplicity be, bow to that which is simple, exactly the same thing, just worded differently. So it's like, I can't with this guidebook. It might just be me, it might work for somebody else, and I know that the author is well known and really well loved and popular. And I think she has knowledge and wisdom and experience. Maybe it's just that I'm not vibing with her writing style, and that's totally okay. Not every writing style is for every person, but just with these two examples that I gave you, I would be interested to hear your guys' opinions on, do you think with these two examples at least, am I just making that up in my mind, or is it really the same thing just repeated over and over again? I would love what you think about that. But that's an example of a guidebook that might seem like a super informative, good guidebook, but content-wise, it's actually basically like two sentences for each card, and that's it when you summarize it to and delete all the repeated things. And then I also want to highlight PDF guidebooks right at the end, because oftentimes we are pretty lazy beings. And so when a deck comes with a PDF guidebook, it's not a guidebook that is immediately put in front of us when we unbox the deck. So oftentimes when we unbox it, we're like, well, I'll do that later, and then we never do. I'm talking from experience here, so I'm not bashing on anybody. I include myself there. But sometimes, or really oftentimes, when I finally realized or remembered that there is a PDF guidebook with that deck, and I could take a look at it and see what the creator has to share about this deck, I was really pleasantly surprised. And this is a guidebook, a PDF guidebook from another Oracle deck that I shared a lot here on my channel because it is a favorite Oracle deck of mine. It's from the Naked Truth Tarot. And this is also an example, not only representing all the PDF guidebooks and saying like PDF guidebooks are worth the click, but also to compare it with something like this, where we get a pretty good amount of words for each of the cards, but content-wise, it's not really a lot. And with this guidebook, you don't really get a lot of words for each of the cards, but content-wise, it really packs a punch. So for this card, for example, she actually gives you some, let's zoom in here. She gives you some more keywords right here. She goes into the symbolism that is on the card, and she gives you further keywords, not only the ones that are on the card, but sometimes one or two more. Then she has the keyword that is on the card, but also another one right here. And then she puts everything together to create a pretty to the point short meaning or message, but it's really integrated in a good way and connected to make sense. And then she goes into the potion and gives you a little bit more information about what you can do, because these potions are on each of the cards, um, for you to use as a method or tool or a practice that will help you with that topic or theme or of the card, or to imply that message from the card. Message doesn't have to use a lot of words or pages of text to be really content heavy, really thought out and useful and helpful. So those were my thoughts on guidebooks, little white books, PDF guidebooks, and why I think we are oftentimes too quick to judge by looks. And the next time you see a walkthrough or a video, or you're doing it on your own, you maybe think or get a deck, you maybe think twice or take a closer look at a guidebook and see what you're actually getting from it. Let me know down in the comments, what are your thoughts on this whole topic? Have you recognized that you are too quick to judge in terms of guidebooks? If you have some other topics that you think might be fitting this "don't judge a book by its cover" phrase or motto, and that I should talk about, also leave those in the comments below. I would love to hear from you guys. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps my channel to grow and to connect to you guys. If you haven't subscribed already, feel free to subscribe. It's just one click. It helps me to grow and it helps you, because then you don't miss another video that is coming up on my channel. Thank you for watching and taking the time to listen to me ramble. Until the next video, guys. Bye.